we're here in 2024 and we're experiencing the Rings of Power. And wow,
I would like to open with a question, if possible.
Why was this show?
No,
just why?
As a pitch, I believe the vast majority of chat have not seen anything. They certainly haven't seen what we have seen. So I'd like to say this, as they've probably seen some of the tweets we've put out, so they already know about some of the more shocking elements. But I want to ask this question in isolation just to see reactions, right? So if someone was pitching this show to you and they said, have you ever wanted to see Sauron as a flappy, wet bag of slime that slides down a mountainside until he flip-flaps along the floor and gets splattered by a carriage? Have you ever wanted to see that?
Do you know who he reminds me of? He didn't remind me of Venom. He reminded me of the Oogie Boogie Man from the Nightmare Before
Christmas. Spot on.
I was laughing throughout the entire
without his sack when he's just made of bugs. That's what he looked like. I was like, oh, it's the Oogie Boogie Man.
I
was waiting for the music to come on. I'm the Oogie Boogie Man.
When he squeezes out of the hole of the mountain, it just slides really slow.
it's when he flips over himself, and he gets stuck in a cartwheel. Because it's like when I've taken the critical doggos out for a walk, right? Sometimes Smokey likes to get up on a sort of slope on a hill and take a dump. That's where he likes to do it, like the most challenging terrain possible. And then it just kind of slides down. And that's like what I was seeing there. It was just, what is this even meant to be? And it's a serious scene as well. You're meant to feel sorry. I don't know.
Oh, dude. Okay, so we should probably give some context, right, of how that. Nah, don't need to do that. You guys are familiar with Hellraiser at least somewhat. The scene in the first one where he's rebuilding himself gradually is incredible for effects. It's so especially when I saw that as a kid, I was blown away by it. I thought they might have done something like that. I thought we were going to see maybe a skeleton made of horrors and it's slowly reforming and coming back together. They went for such an embarrassing version. He's just a bag of stuff flopping around. How could you? You waste all of that money.
A really bad version of Venom. That's like the symbiote before he's attached himself to a person. So
at least Venom is trying to be funny a lot of the time.
I mean, if I get before we, I guess, get into the real minutia of this, because it's like 3 entire episodes to cover, man. It's a nightmare. I don't even know how we're going to do this, but we'll wing it. I guess I just wanted to give an overall impression first. This was one of the most challenging viewing experiences I've ever had. I had to force myself to sit down and watch these because I kept trying to get through these 3 episodes. I kept thinking of things to go and do. I kept thinking of excuses to get up and leave the room and do something else. I wanted to be anywhere else except sat down in front of my TV watching this crap. And every time I would pause it, thinking maybe 15, 20 minutes had gone by, I would see the timer on the episode and 5 minutes had passed. I felt like by the end, I experienced some kind of existential crisis. I was like, oh my God, I feel like I've been here for about 3 weeks and I'm still here watching this fucking show and it's never going to end. And I'm just terrified for my own sanity. I don't know what's happening anymore. It was one of the most bizarre and unsettling experiences I've ever had with something like this. And I never want to do it again.
Well, there was that slightly weird experience because you look at the timestamp for episode 2 and you find, oh, it's only 45 minutes. Well, that's a relief. But actually, by the end of it, you can't really tell the difference. It feels just as long as the other 2.
I miss Marvel TV shows where it's like, this will be 30 minutes. Then you find out 15 are credits. And you're like, oh, sweet. I've only got 10 minutes of TV shows over 2 scenes.
Yeah, and because you can skip the intros and then the recap and everything. So that usually shaves a few minutes off as well. But this just does not let up. And it's so boring. I was just,
dude. The Gandalf scenes especially was so fucking dry.
That was the most obvious to cut. I mean, there's so much wrong with it. I was actually trying. There's so much wrong with it that I was coming at it from the opposite angle. I was like, okay, stop. What is good about it? What did I like about it? Is there anything? And I did identify 2 things. No, 3 things that I liked. Yeah. I'll quickly, Matt.
You can get them out of the way if you want.
Kieran Hines is in it. He's a brilliant actor.
Yeah, I was kind of sad to see him, to be honest.
I was annoyed at his inclusion, though, right? Because I'll tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why. One, he's in a shit show, but two, right? We talked before about like how they've got this Middle Earth setting, which for the most part is set around a Northern European setting. And every time you go into any podunk village in the middle of nowhere, it looks like downtown LA. You've got Asian people, you've got black people, you've got East Asians, all mixed into this ridiculous cultural blending, melting pot. Sorry. They go to Rune, right? The Far East, like, which is the Middle Earth equivalent of the Middle East, right? This is finally your chance to actually have diverse actors in universe and have it make sense, and you pick a fucking white guy to be the main dude. Why? What is wrong with you? There's a million like Middle Eastern actors out there who could have played that role fucking brilliant, and you pick Kieran Hines, possibly the whitest man that's ever existed. Fucking show, honestly, I hate it. It made me actually angry watching it. Not just that, but every aspect of this show.
Feminem was in Rune too. Like, Feminem is whiter than white. She's like albino. Oh my
god!
Oh, the grim shady.
It was so fucking. When I saw her, I was like, "Yes, she's back." What an awful idea. It's like seeing Jar Jar Binks come back. You're like, yes, here he is.
You know that thing that everyone mocked about season 1? Sure, let's bring her back.
Oh my god, she's so goofy.
I mean, you know, Platoon, Rob, like, what was your, like, just before we get into any sort of details, like, what was your overall impression of these episodes? Like, what was your experience of watching it?
Well, you know, like you, one of the things you tweeted out, that apparently, you know, that Mordor is full of now orcs that want to settle down and have families.
Oh my god!
You know, and I'm like, is that
broke
really?
Me.
I'm like, really? I think here's the thing that I don't understand about the people that are making this show. If you look at Fellowship of the Ring and you look at after the 5-minute montage that explains the history of Middle Earth, the first thing you're introduced to is the Shire. And Gandalf's cart comes in, you see Frodo talk to Gandalf, yo, late. And they drive through the Shire and you see disdainful looks from some of the hobbits at Gandalf. Clearly there's a pass there. 5 minutes in to that sequence, you know all you need to know about the Shire. You identify with it. We as viewers understand exactly where we are. We like these people. We even like the people that don't like Gandalf. We like everything. We completely understand everything we need to know about where we are in Middle Earth. I don't feel that way about any scene in this show. I watch this show and I'm like, where am I? Why do I care? What am I supposed to feel like? And I felt this way during the entire first season. They keep introducing people because it feels like they think we're supposed to have them in this show, but they haven't earned any of it. So the reason, Drinker, I think you're so bored by it, as I was, I'm watching this and I feel that there's a barrier between this show and me caring. I'd like to care. I'd love to love a Middle Earth set show that tells us about the First Age and the War of the Ring and all that. I have no interest. And I find that that's a hard thing for a showrunner to do for me because I'm pretty forgiving. I have no interest in anything that's going on or any of the way the story is being told or unfolding. And in a way, I hate myself for it, but I hate them more for not understanding. Go back and watch the opening 5 minutes of Fellowship of the Ring. That's how you establish sequences. That's how you establish environments and characters and world building. Because we as the audience, we understand exactly who and what these people are. And from the opening scene of Rings of Power, when they showed us Galadriel and the snow-capped peaks, I'm like, who is this? Where are we? Why are we doing this? And I feel that every scene in this show is just like that.
It's a poor imitation. And like, yeah, with every scene, every moment of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, I never doubted for 1 second that I was in that world. I was fully immersed in it. The verisimilitude, as you point out, was there 100%. With this, I just feel like I'm watching a really crappy stage production that just had loads of money behind it. You know, it's amateurish, it's sloppy, it's someone's bad fan fiction that's somehow been given $1 billion budget. I never feel like I'm part of this world.
You're particularly lost to begin with, but I can't believe they started this season on a scene with two characters that we're supposed to be familiar with. One in universe who has changed his face, and the other that got recast. So it's like, who the fuck are these people? Yeah. As someone who rewatched season 1, I was like, yeah, I'm following it. I recognize the makeup you've got for Adar, and I know that Sauron can change his appearances and stuff. But I was like, the average person, though, I'm sure they're just going to be like, I don't know what this is. they all stab him. And I was just thinking to myself, like, you should have got his blood in a jar, I guess, or something. I was like, that always gets you.
They took the... Because it's described in the books as like the essence of Sauron always remains, like no matter like whether you kill his physical body, like somehow his essence survives and it can like gradually transfer to a new place and he'll set up a new base.
Form, though, not as goo.
Exactly, yeah. They took this so fucking literally, where he just becomes flumpy black goo that just flops down a mountainside, and like. He's lying there in the dirt somewhere, and it's just happenstance that someone runs over him with a cartwheel.
Oh, I can't believe
a cart, not like someone doing cartwheels across the landscape, but you know,
that would have made more sense.
And to be
clear,
if
that person hadn't come along, would he have just died? Would Sauron literally have...
They keep flopping. He just keep on flopping.
Literally, I've actually got in my notes, it's like, flop monster, question mark? Is he just going to flop across the entire...
He's going to flop until he finds something.
Does he have limited flopping range? Or?
He's just
you remember, powered by plenty of rats and millipedes, he's going to go on forever.
Away.
That's just how I want. It's how I need to see Sauron to believe his power. Like seeing him like that. Compare it to the prologue of Lord of the Rings, where you see this wimpy guy getting killed. Who cares? The flop monster, the sack of jelly. That's where it's at, man. I was like, oof, wouldn't want to fuck with this guy.
Well, it's also so uncreative. I mean, you'd think with Sauron they would give you something majestic, like maybe he disassembles somehow and blows away into the wind, and you see. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, his essence is blown onto the trees or onto the land or something, and it's permeating everything. And it gives you something that is, in a way, darkly majestic or has a fairy tale quality to it. But watch, and that's the thing. You feel like you guys brought up earlier, somebody was watching Venom and thought, oh, let's do it like that.
Like, why couldn't they have done it like... If they did it like Hellraiser, with the skeleton is building up first, and then he is to crawl out into a place that has some level of vegetation or greenery, and everything is like an aura around him getting sucked into him. Yeah, everything goes grey and crusted or die. Like everything's there's life sources getting drawn into him. More power, something like that. Instead of the flop monster, who thought the flop monster was the way to go?
The thing is, those showrunners looked at that sequence being previs, being edited, till they got the final effects in, and the entire time they all said, yep, that's the way we're going to do it. And we're sitting here debating this for 3 minutes and are coming up with ways that were better and more effective, that weren't cringe-inducing or indeed laughter-inducing.
It all has the effect of making this seem small and petty.
Yes.
You know, like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and certainly the books, they made it epic. Like all of these things seemed, as you said, majestic. They had great weight behind them, and they felt like significant. But like when you see it like this, the flop monster, it is laughable and it's small and it's so literal and physical and just limited by that. Like that's not what Sauron is. He's not.
Even the manner of his death as well. I saw someone in chat ask how Sauron was defeated. He was stabbed with his own crown after being mean to some orcs. Like it's not. This is not an epic death. This is not some grand moment where like the pinnacle of evil, which is on the cusp of retaking his power, is suddenly thrown down. No. He's an idiot. He stands there in a cave and he tells the orcs, "No one will ever like or accept you. Look, watch this." Stabs an orc for no reason, and then gets stabbed with his own crown by Adar, and then he turns into the flop monster who slinks away. It's just
really appreciated the shot of him looking up at the crown and being like, "Yep, that's the right way. He's not going to stab me. All right, I can look down."
You know, but you don't understand the poetry there, Moa, because it's like a ring. You see, he's looking up at the ring. Ooh. Oh my God, it's like poetry. It rhymes.
That entire first scene didn't make any sense from a... It's just the worst writing, because how it opens up is Sauron is standing in front of the orcs in a giant cave, making his case to them as to why he should be the leader. And his first line, I think, is something like, Morgoth is dead. And that is a perfect example of non-diegetic exposition. Like, everybody knows this. This is purely for the audience.
Yeah. So, guys, just want to make it clear, Morgoth died, right? We all know.
As you know, this is the current state of affairs.
Imagine Napoleon walking into the National Assembly on the day of the Brumaire coup and saying, guys, the Bourbons are gone. We need a new ruler in France. Like, no, that wouldn't happen. Everyone knows this. This has been established years ago. They've moved on to other things. And where's his bodyguard? He doesn't have a bodyguard. And this isn't how power is transferred in an army. When the leader of because when you're writing fantasy, you have to draw from history. Like George R.R. Martin referenced the War of the Roses when he was writing Game of Thrones. So history should be your foundation when you're writing fantasy. And if you're going to do something like Rings of Power, you know, look at what happens to large armies when the leader dies. Like, who gets it next? Like, look at what happened to Mao Zedong, for example. Why was he chosen to take over the communists during the Long March, or even Napoleon during the Napoleonic eras? Like, that power transfers don't occur because of big speeches. There's usually an adjutant general who takes over. Like, even
I mean,
I always got the impression as well
out there. Because this is not like a straight historical tale. Like, the power transfers amongst orcs do not occur politically to begin with. Orcs are not individual beings who have complete agency, are able to form fucking unions and decide who their own king's going to be.
Yeah.
They're not. That's not what they are, and it's not what Sauron is either. So, like, talking about everything feeling very small, by virtue of turning Sauron into effectively one political candidate amongst many political candidates whom the orcs may choose or not, automatically divests him of a huge amount of the power of reputation he's supposed to have. Sauron is not a person. Sauron is basically like a demiurge. She's a demigod. Sauron is almost, I think Tolkien describes him as the closest thing to pure evil you can find in The Lord of the Rings. The orcs never chose to be ruled by Sauron, and Sauron didn't have to contest for Morgoth's crown after Morgoth was defeated. This happened because this is the way in which evil functions in this world. And if you start messing with that stuff, then you have to start diminishing Sauron. I get that's what they want to do, because they want to try and create this from the ground up villain origin story again. But that's not how these characters are supposed to work, and it's not how this world works either. Because if you go forward in time then, and you say, well, okay, the orcs are able to choose who they lead, or sorry, who leads them, is Sauron going to have a massive purge of all the orcs in the Southlands because they chose to follow somebody else? Are the orcs able to say, you know what, Sauron, you're a bit too mean to us, so we might go and, start our own little thing somewhere else? None of this works. It actually takes away from everything that follows it, because they have completely misconstrued the point of the story, as always.